Hello, my name's Stefan Senna, and this is my channel, The Coherence Path, and all roads lead to you. This is one of my paintings behind me. I thought I'd share another painting. I'm trying to mix up my channel between sharing my paintings and why I do them, talking about consciousness and life lessons mixed with other things. I have another channel called What Was Seen, and that channel is mostly about the paranormal. That includes ghosts, Bigfoot, um, superhuman strength, and visions people have, intuition, stuff like that. And that's where I share my own experiences because I've had experiences, multiple experiences in each category. Um, and I'm looking forward to interviewing people who have had their own. Now, back in 1997, as you might have heard on one of my other videos, I had what's typically called a near-death experience, but I call it now a shift of consciousness because I don't believe we're, first of all, even in our bodies, that we're living through an avatar, which is this human form, to experience this contrasting life that we all have. And that's for the purpose of becoming love, to growing up and learning how to be kind. And that lesson can be learned very easily. It doesn't take any complicated books. There's no secrets about it. It just takes a determination within ourselves to just be in coherence with who we truly are. You know, if we were all asked at the end of our life what is the most meaningful thing that you experienced in your life, most people would say my relationships and connection with others, the times in my life where I actually listened to my own inner voice, and the times where I was at peace with what was going on and the decisions I made. That's coherence. That's just a state of balance between logic, or combined, there's a balance between logic and intuition, or consciousness, breathing, living through you to where you just accept everything as it is, and yet you're still kind. And that can be very challenging at times because life has a lot of contrast. But anyway, after my shift in consciousness, that you might call a near-death experience, where I was transported, if you will, to other experiences that taught me some big lessons, I was basically directed to ask the question, what do I paint? And I then experienced another visionary experience from which I painted. And this painting is the result of that. I painted this probably, I don't know, 10 years after that 1997 experience. And when I asked the question, what do I paint? I was immediately shifted in consciousness, like a lucid dream. But I was awake, just standing there like I am now. And all I know is everything that I normally see with my eyes disappeared. And I was without a body, floating in absolute darkness that was the deepest blue you could possibly imagine. And within this space that I found myself in, floating, a light began to appear. And that light got bigger and bigger and bigger until it just took over the entire space of the area that I was within. And I do remember that there was like a humming energy, and it was like a small amount of, you know, how that electricity hums, you know, when you are around really high voltage, like a, but it wasn't loud like that at all. It was very subtle. It was just an energy that was just subtly there. But more than that was a feeling of just um, unconditional awareness and presence. I hate to say the word love because for this incident, because love connotates that there was something going on, like somebody was being nice to me, or I was feeling nice about somebody else there, but none of that was there. There was simply a presence. You know, if you've ever sat next to a stranger, a complete stranger on a park bench, and you both were just at peace with sitting there on the park bench doing your own thing, maybe reading your own book, but you could sense the presence of the other person there. It was similar to that, but in a broader sense. And so when that experience ended, like they all do, it probably lasted maybe 2 or 3 seconds. But when I was in the experience, it seemed like it could have lasted a couple hours. Um, then I probably had this canvas standing there on an easel or against the wall like it is, and my paint's out, and I remember, you know, asking in my mind, what color should I use? And this color, phthalo blue, which I've used quite a bit, it spoke to me, and I didn't pre-sketch out anything. I didn't think about what I was painting. I just, I squeezed the paint out on the little palette thing and mixed it with some water, and I just started painting, and in, I don't know, maybe a couple hours this painting was done. It didn't take me a week. The time doesn't matter, but I'm just trying to explain that, it wasn't something that I struggled with. I just had this experience. I just started painting it, and there it is. I've never touched it again since I finished it. And it was probably a couple days later, or later that day, I don't remember. I sat it on the floor and sat on the floor myself across from it, next to my bed probably, and I just stared at it, and then I closed my eyes and opened up my consciousness to what it might mean to me. And that's what I do with most of my paintings. And there are some that I immediately know what they mean to me, and I just think about it and feel it, and then that's fine. I don't have to spend a bunch of time with them. But typically, all of my paintings I go back and have the same process with, because the message is the one I create. It's not the message that the painting creates. And that's true for, most everything in life. You could be walking on a path, and there's a rock in the middle of the path, and you might create the meaning, oh, there's a block in my life, or there's something I have to get around, or here's an opportunity to hop over a rock. So the meaning is decided by our own consciousness, and it is the same for my paintings. And what they mean today is possibly different than what they meant, 20 years ago when I painted them. And that evolves just like my own consciousness is evolving, because I haven't learned it all. I'm not grown up yet. I'm endeavoring every day to grow up, and that's all we can do, is make good decisions, make the best decisions we can in the moment, not be down on ourselves if we don't know what to do. Well, just, write down what you want, what you don't want, and ask what's being presented, and ask, how can I navigate this situation, and then take your best stab at it, because that's really all you can do. There's a lot of times that you make decisions that it turns out that you're uncertain or naive. A decision turns out to be the exact best thing you could possibly do. And there's other situations where you make the decision and it wasn't that great of an idea. So we don't always know, but if we look back, and they say, hindsight is 20/20. If we look back, then usually we can see between the lines that, well, I can see how there was purpose in those things, even though I didn't understand them at the time. So, what else? I do have a book about, it's called The Way of the Image. Now, I didn't write this book, and years ago I was looking for books to help me understand why I had been told to paint, and it was very difficult for me to understand why I was told to paint during that experience. I mean, I had an argument with the powers that be, the universe, for a week, and against every desire in me, you know, I had an experience that then completely changed my point of view. But this gentleman, his name was Yoram Kaufman. He wrote this book, The Way of the Image, and he says something in here as far as self-analysis. And his whole book is about images and how they affect us consciously. And he wrote, self-analysis recommends free association as a method of examining one's unconscious. And he's referring to how the consciousness perceives the image and responds to it. So if somebody tells you something means something, then typically people just sort of stay with that suggestion. But if you have free association, in other words, you have an open mind, and you decide through your own logic and your own intuition, and through being open to receiving information, then your own consciousness decides what an image means to you and how it can be translated onto your path, whether it be useful or not. And if I told you in the beginning of this video that, you know, I saw an angel and I painted this painting because I saw an angel and this is the message the angel gave me, then that meaning would be impregnated in this image, and that's the only way you'd see it. And you might like it, and you might not like it at all. And none of my images have ever come with any particular meaning for the most part, except for my experience that I had where I was actually spoken to. But anyway, that's another video on another one of my paintings. If you find it useful, subscribe to my channel, The Coherence Path, or What Was Seen, and possibly write me if you have an experience you want to share and be interviewed in regards to. All right, thank you.